Welcome to part 2 of our Trailhead research results. In part 1 we discussed the data, numbers, figures, percentages, and details behind them. In this part we'll be going over the personal reports of creators sharing their journeys, experiences, and advice. Please forgive the quick intro, this really is part 2 of something we were already in the middle of, so I'd like to jump right back into it. Let's begin with a series many of you will recognize, whose story is one to hold on to and remember as you create your project. Hi, I'm Mary launched on YouTube on July 9, 2016, and by August 26, 2021, it had reached a first video view height of 821,931, with 107,000 subscribers. The creator, Kay, sent me a fantastic report on her journey with the series, and I'd like to share some highlights with you. Kay writes, Hi, I'm Mary was conceptualized out of initially just wanting to make a web series. I spent a lot of time in 2015 to 2016, my freshman year of college, writing out various web series ideas in my notes app on my computer. I'm someone who generally thinks very visually, and a song or situation can strike tons of visual ideas in my head, typically similar to shots of a film. That's how most of the visuals of Mary were conceptualized. Looking back through my notes app, there's tons of shit ideas for web series that never stuck, and then at the end of April 2016, I jotted down this. A camera-shy young woman haunted by the physical manifestations of her demons. The ghosts represent different fears and anxieties. The idea stuck. I couldn't stop thinking about it and got excited. The ideas kept flowing and I kept writing them down, typically coming to me in the shower or in transit to my classes. Initially, I worked at jotting down all these random ideas and sat down to try to organize them. The whole thing was initially a series of messy ideas in my notes app, which I printed and transferred into a notebook that had been meant for non-schoolwork ideas, basically usurped into the giant Mary notebook. I put it together into something that basically contained most of the main beats of the series. The ending wasn't fleshed out, but I had a general idea of what I wanted to happen. This continued over the course of April through June, and I didn't really start doing any production until July 2016. The writing for Mary episodes usually went as follows. I would brainstorm out what I wanted in key visual moments, key dialogue if there was any. Next, I'd write out a shot list. This worked for most of the videos that were styled in a very montagey fashion. When a video had more of an in-the-moment run-around and scream kind of feel, like Worse, Do Not Touch, and Gone, I'd write more of a choreographed sequence of moments to hit and would just improv outside of that. I shot, edited, and posted the first episode in 2 days, since it was fairly simple and easy to do. I posted it and told 2 of my friends, both of whom followed the series on their personal YouTube channels. Videos 2 to 5 were all shot in July through August of 2016, so I had a large collection of footage. I worked as a camp counselor over the summer, and a few times brought my computer to work and edited on my break. I posted videos 2 and 3 before school started again, and then did my editing for 4 through 5 in free moments. I filmed and posted 6 on school break. Pretty much my general rule was shoot during break, edit during school, which continued until I graduated, so I'd often have footage taken way in advance. I never really expected to get anywhere with Hi, I'm Mary. I just wanted to do it for fun, and figured I'd maybe make a few friends in the community. I was a big fan of the Sunderverse and other ARGs/web series, so I like to hang in those communities quietly as more of a lurker. My primary areas I spent time were Tumblr, where it was hopping, and the Unforum for Sunderverse. I was in communication with someone else in the community and name-dropped my series in their anonymous asks, which they posted and said they'd watched and liked a few episodes in, but that did very little for actual growth. I spent 7 months with 6 subscribers, 3 of which were my hometown friends and 3 I still don't know but have a hunch about them. That was fine with me, as I was ultimately just having fun at the time. I'd felt a little squeaked out at the idea of self-promoting, but realized that the YouTube algorithm was truly nobody's friend very quickly, and decided to promote myself one singular time under the Sunderverse tag on Tumblr using my behind-the-scenes blog. So, after posting episode 6, I whipped up a kinda shitty image, graphic design is not my passion, and a small write-up and posted this in the tag. That one post actually did quite a lot for my growth, getting a lot of notes and getting the attention of other creators. I never needed to self-promote again after that. Everything from that point on, no joke, was word of mouth. People shared it with each other in Discord channels, people talked about it and made fan art on Tumblr, people mentioned it on Reddit, and somebody made a Trailhead on Unfiction just before it went down. To this day, I don't know who did it. I think I got a couple hundred views initially, maybe 1,000 after a little while. I was super happy with that and never really expected it to go from there. I basically just kept going with my small audience, trying to release videos every few months or so to avoid crazy long hiatuses, and actually most of the time met my goals of one video every 2 to 3 months. I hated the shit that Sunderverse creators got for taking time to post videos, so I'd made a point to get mine out every few months. It wasn't until Do Not Touch that I started to do more complex videos that took more time. I'd interact with my little audience on the behind the scenes blog every once in a while, recording a thank you message from my first 50 subscribers, answering asks, typical creator stuff. I chatted with people in DMs and on Discord, and it was very manageable. The very first video that exposed me to a larger audience actually came in the form of Nexpo's Unnerving YouTube Channel's number 3 on October 27, 2017. It started to grow quite a bit from there. Then a month and a half later, the Nightmind episode on it came out in December, literally just as I'm doing my finals. I started to boom like crazy, experiencing major bursts in growth, going from 2,000 to 10,000 in a matter of days. It continued growing pretty steadily after that, and I caught a few major international YouTubers as well, some in South America and some in Eastern Europe, building small audiences over there. Growth started to stagnate a bit, and then somehow somebody tipped MatPat off about me, and that video came out, which led to another major boom in growth, followed by another when his second video came out, and then there was another boost when I finished the series as well as the final Nightmind video coming out. I've attached a screenshot of the analytics. Kay's screenshot is great for showing the progress as each new moment of major coverage arrived, and what it looked like while she persevered with her series up to being covered. In light of the information on how the initial experience went up until Nexpo's coverage, I asked Kay if she could share a screenshot for the analytics from launch up to the day before that first major boom. This is a chart of Kay's subscribers during that time, a period of 15 months and 1 week. In all that time, she had gathered only 208 subscribers and an overall channel total of about 2,900 views. The very first spike occurred on March 4th, the day she decided to try self-promoting using the Tumblr post pointed at the Slenderverse community, and it resulted in 12 subscribers immediately, followed by another few for some time after. But up until that point, Kay only had around 6 subscribers for a period of 7 months, and you can literally see that in the analytics. It was about 7 months, 3 weeks when she put out her Tumblr post, and you can see the world of difference it made. She never had to self-promote after that point, as she said. But up until the moment she did so, her numerical progress in terms of views and subscribers was abysmal. Here's the analytics shot for the views in that same time span, illustrating the point. There was not a single day that Kay received anywhere close to even 50 views until the self-promotion post. I want those of you who have seen Hi, I'm Mary Mary and witnessed what it's achieved to think about this for a moment. If Kay had given up before that point based on the way things were going, how much would we have lost? How much would she have deprived herself of experiencing as a creator? 7 months, 3 weeks. She stayed in the fight and then gave herself a chance to be seen by a wider audience. And if she had quit at any point before then, the entire story of Hi, I'm Mary Mary and everything surrounding it would not exist. And this relates to my definition of failure discussed in part 1. You only fail if you quit. You can use numbers as a guiding light and a gauge of what's average all you like, but Kay's story alone proves that it doesn't mean a damn thing if you're getting 100 views per month or just 20. You could be creating the next biggest treasure in the field, and it simply hasn't reached its audience yet. And this is also why I love bringing you coverage of hidden gems and projects that have been buried in the waters of YouTube. Numbers do not inherently know quality, especially online. This is the case to always remember. If Kay's project had reached me at this exact time, right now for this project, and she was only just 7 months in, then Hi, I'm Mary Mary would have appeared as a well below average performer by the metrics we discussed, and entirely within the realm of objective failure by numbers. So for all those who are in the same boat, or who have been there before, take heart. Recognize the truth in Kay's story. You can make it. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the audience. Sometimes it's a matter of learning your way until you strike the gold that brings in the audience. But no matter what, you only succeed if you persevere, and you only fail if you quit. But what if, in the course of fighting that good fight, you feel like you're just not making it through, or the weight has become too much? Here are some more words from Kay on that very matter. My senior year got pretty overtaken by my college thesis, which ate my time like crazy. I was only able to post Gone during college, and was so consumed by my thesis and other senior work that I spent very little time on Mary. I was only able to put last 8 months out after I graduated, and even then I was working so slowly because I was also working on finding a job. I did get a job, but took on an online grad school program in addition, so it became a lot harder to manage my time and I began to crash. Those last 2 videos were so huge that they felt unmanageable, and I'd even confessed to my audience on the behind the scenes blog that I was hitting a wall and would be working slow for a while. In retrospect, I had actually been very slowly burning out. I usually only had Sundays free to work on non-online school things, and so I worked on Mary stuff then. In a moment of crazy motivation, I made the final art checklist document and began to chip away at it. Believe it or not, the thing that finally led to very speedy production was the pandemic. I was temporarily laid off for 2 months, April and May, and while I still had online school, needed a way to spend my free time. I kicked into gear and managed to put the final 2 videos out at the end of May. Even at the height of her performance and recognition, and so close to the end, Kay did experience struggle and the demands of life on her time and energy. But here too, she persevered and pushed through to the other side. Kay completed her series, finished Mary's story, and had a major impact on the people who followed it and resonated with the character and her journey. Out of all the case studies I know I will be recommending and referring to from now until whatever time that I'm not doing this, if I ever end up not doing this, it will be the case of Hi, I'm Mary Mary. This is the story to hold on to. Don't give up. Keep going. You never really know what will happen. Let's turn now to a newer project with some different variables. Mainly one that chose to attempt self-promotion from the very beginning, and to do so with some serious passion. Hiding in My Home launched on YouTube on July 24, 2020, and held a first video view total of 14,486 and 9.9 thousand subscribers by August 28, 2021. The Trailhead report provided by the creator, Christian, is also excellent, and we'll begin with this passage. I had actually spent months planning out the first 2 acts of an Unfiction series the previous summer. I was very proud of this concept, but it was far too complex logistically to create at the time. After years of this kind of thing happening to me, I knew I needed to come up with something actually doable. This idea was born out of the necessity of staying home during the pandemic. Something I could create without going anywhere, but that could still include concrete characters to whom an audience could theoretically get attached, as opposed to a series that's exclusively created in editing software, where enjoyment might be rooted more deeply in puzzle solving. Though the title has caused speculation about the possibility, the lockdowns had nothing to do with the material of the series. They did catalyze the series creation though, if that makes sense. The question, how do I make a house a compelling setting for a web series, not a place that feels obviously amateurish, produced the idea. The not obviously amateurish part, I don't know how well I've succeeded there, but that was the intention. At the end of July, the first 4 videos in the series had already been uploaded. I had published them without knowing I would start to feel more ambitious. With that ambition came the knowledge that I would have to start treating Hiding in My Home like less of a throwaway project. I began writing for it more seriously and advertising it however I could. I decided I would do everything I realistically could to expose the series to more people, now that I was getting increasingly excited about it. 1. I prepared to do some things that I felt were desperate/shameful, even if people really do understand these days. And 2. I fully expected the series to gain little notoriety in the grand scheme of things no matter how hard I worked at this. I created a Twitter account for the series to enhance the real-time Unfiction feel, but also to simply start following tons of people so they would click on it. I followed users who themselves followed other ARG Twitter accounts and the accounts of ARG Analysis YouTube channels. On average, 50 per day. I did the same thing with an Instagram account for the series, though I usually only posted on there to announce a new video. I advertised the series on old YouTube channels of mine. I submitted the series to the Nightmind Index. I regularly posted new videos to r/ARG and related subreddits. Here, I acted as if I was a third party showing off the series, even though I'm sure nobody fell for that. I also posted the videos to 4chan's Export sometimes, in character as Hollis. I began commenting on horror and ARG-centric YouTube videos with the Hiding in My Home YouTube account. I justified this by leaving comments in character as Hollis and later as Anthony. I tried to follow various YouTube channels to learn when they would release a new video, so I could comment on it early, and then use up to 12 alternate Gmail accounts to artificially inflate the comments rating and get it to the top of the comments section. I really got this formula to work well sometimes in September. One successful top comment that alluded to the series could get as many as 30 subscribers, but I started trying it in August. I noticed occasional scoffing at how desperately I was advertising the series, but honestly it was far less than I expected. People were pretty understanding. My cautious goal was to have 100 subscribers on YouTube by the end of August, and we just barely achieved that. In September, Christian notes, the channel had 500 subscribers by the end of the month, and we had gotten excited about what the future might hold. Making 100 subscribers by the end of August alone was impressive, since the project had only been live for just over a month. Reaching 500 by the end of September is exemplary territory. And while Christian's self-promotion work had been aggressive to the point of being risky, and some tactics being slightly dubious, we really can't ignore that they were, the quality of the project and dedication to uploading had made the advertising effective in causing audience turnover. Remember, advertising does nothing for you if the product itself isn't good. Do not bank on self-promotion saving you if you haven't put in the work. Here's what Christian had to say in October, the third full month of operation. In terms of advertisement and popularity, this was, in all honesty, a demoralizing month for me. I knew this was irrational thinking at the time because the channel was continuing to grow more quickly than I had expected at the outset, but it was a small decline from the previous month, which stung, as we were all putting even more effort in, and I continued my promotional schemes the same as ever. I knew for a fact that hiding in my home was a name thrown around the niche/emerging Unfiction sphere. I now suspect that as we got to about 900 subscribers, the series reached a kind of saturation point within the most dedicated part of the ARG community. Most of those people who seek out new ARGs every day and are constantly keeping themselves up to date on new developments probably knew about hiding in my home, and that made another exponential increase in exposure like from August to September very unlikely. This is speculation, but it feels probable to me. At this early point in the series, I knew taking a break wasn't an option, but I was definitely getting burnt out by the end of October. Luckily, I had finally managed to secure a couple video editing clients, so that kept me in decent spirits. I imagine it's always a good idea to keep some of your eggs outside the amateur creative project basket. For November, Christian wrote, "This was probably a less educational month because it was mostly a month of luck. In blunt truth, the reason I felt demoralized at this time was that I knew we needed a YouTube channel to cover the series if it was to grow any faster than a couple hundred new regular viewers per month. We already were getting more viewers than some people ever do, but I was greedy and proud and wanted to hang with I'm Sophie and Dad and Lasagna Cat and Local 58 and all the other recent YouTube unfictions that are bigger, better, and more professional. I went to Elijah's apartment, Dr. Tanner's apartment where Hollis stays in the story, for a weekend to film videos 20 and 23. Very simple videos, so it was an easy weekend. Just as I was about to leave on Monday, November 9th, I remember the date well, Inside of Mind released a video not even so much analyzing hiding in my home as simply telling people to go watch it. That was a bigger favor and compliment than I could have imagined. The same day we passed 1,000 subscribers, we also passed 2,000, and all of the videos after number 13 quickly amassed multiple thousands of views. This was surely the best day I had had all year. I knew Jamie had looked at the series on a Twitch stream, but I never ever expected him to release a video about it on his YouTube channel just a couple weeks later. By the end of the month, we had about 5,000 subscribers, and I felt I didn't need to promote the series myself anymore. So there are a few things I want to discuss here in regards to the passage for November. First, the efforts that Christian had put forward in creating, maintaining, and promoting the series were immense, and the result was outstanding. Hiding in My Home's progress within just 4 months was exemplary, a smash hit that goes well beyond the average. It was a series that I had a lot of people recommend to me too. And even as it was slowing down, Christian notes, we needed a YouTube channel to cover the series if it was to grow any faster than a couple hundred new regular viewers per month. Take notice of that. A couple hundred new regular viewers per month. Remember how we discussed a healthy target range earlier for monthly progress? If Hiding in My Home was doing exemplary work and progressing well above average, which it clearly was, then about 200 new viewers every month is exactly on target for them, seeing how it's double what we were theorizing is the average range. Even with this project knocking it out of the park, I would say its report is further evidence that any guiding light a creator might ask for really is within that proposed range. 100 views per month, give or take 300 in either direction. 300 below on the low edge of health, 300 above being on the superb edge of health. And having established that, I want to underline how the hunger for better performance at this point truly wasn't necessary. When you hit this level this quickly, you have already outclassed the entire average range and entered the S-tier rank of growth for a new Unfiction project. You are a breakout already. You don't need Jamie, myself, or anyone to cover you because you didn't just succeed on the numbers, you smashed them over your knee. And if myself, Inside of Mind, Rainbot, Nexpo, Ember, Loey Lane, or someone else doesn't come calling that month, it is going to happen for you at some point soon, and it'll be just as much of a surprise as it was for Christian on November 9th. Keep the faith and keep going. Don't think that you've failed or that you're still waiting for something just because you haven't been covered. Your success is evident. There's a passage from May of 2021 that I'd like to jump to now, and it illustrates another point we raised earlier regarding the experience for Walker Creek. As for the broader Discord community and its relationship to the series, the more dedicated viewers tend to go there for discussion and puzzle solving. I'd say there's been a group as large as around 30 people and as small as around 10 people posting at least a few times per week, trying to tease out answers at various times. The small size of this group compared to the YouTube viewer base has never bothered me. I rarely engage in the interactive elements of ARGs either, which is why I wish to create an Unfiction series with only supplementary interactivity. Still, these viewers are near and dear to me. Think about that. As massive as Hiding in My Home had grown from November to May of this year, there was only a consistent group of 10 to 30 people operating as the diver set for the series. So again, let me hop on this point. Do not get discouraged by how few people get seriously deep in all the ARG elements of your work, because they will be the size of a classroom on average and the size of a college lecture hall at best. And if you're willing to pull the mask off for a moment and tell those people how much you appreciate them, do it. And now we'll finish this personal report scan with quotes from the conclusion. I'll end with another discussion of viewer reception, how I've perceived things since the Inside of Mine video came out, and a couple other final thoughts. All emotions about the series' identity, positive and negative, have been duller since that video. It's a wonderful feeling for the series to have, for lack of better phrasing, etched out a small place in the Unfiction world, and nothing has mattered as much since I first felt that it had. But if I'm being honest, and it would be a lie by omission if I didn't say this, I've felt dispirited at times since that video came out, in as much as I felt happy or unhappy about viewership and reception at all. From November 2020 to the time I'm writing this, we've released 18 videos in the series, and I don't think one has gotten more views than the previous one more than maybe 3 times. This is more so the rule than the exception for web series. It happened to Marble Hornet, certainly. It happens to most at some point, I'd say, on larger and smaller scales alike. Quick interjection, absolutely. That is definitely the case, as we explained earlier. Continuing on, regardless of whether Hiding in My Home or any other web series deserves this, because I'm aware that our series is flawed, it's been pretty discouraging at times, at least for me. The obsession with numbers becomes tiring, and yet the numbers are impossible to ignore. For the last few months, my motivation for finishing this series has mainly come from a personal desire to see the project through to the end and test my own abilities, not any fantasies about the series becoming more widely known than it is now. Of course though, from a more objective standpoint, the important thing is satisfying the remaining viewers who have enjoyed the series, theorized about it, and stuck with it. I hope the conclusion does so, providing many answers and emotional thrills. Lately, the experience of working harder than ever to bring the series to a close while also seeing its flaws has confirmed to me how difficult it is to create an impressive, entertaining, enriching work of art with few means and few people at one's disposal. And though clearly discouragement sets in at times, the complementary times of excitement make it worthwhile. I am happy to have worked on this series. It's been an ambition of mine to complete an Unfiction project for a decade, and I'm close enough to finish now that I know I'll accomplish that objective. I included this section because it echoes a sentiment shared by Kay regarding the end of Hiya Mary Mary. Everybody gets tired. There is a moment when the excitement wears off, and there is discouragement and doubt. But you must persevere, as Christian knew he must. To interject personally for a moment, making this video and completing the work for the Trailhead project has been no picnic, and I've had to work even harder and longer on this than I did for the 2-part special on the Dexter ARG last year. You do get tired. And not only are you allowed to catch your breath, you must catch your breath. But once you've done so, you need to carry on. You know you've got a job to do, and you can finish it. I'd like to bring up one last report to highlight from Saria, the creator of Diminish. This series launched on YouTube on November 7, 2020. At the time of data capture, the first video view count was 53,379, and subscribers were at 19.1 thousand. Saria's report has some excellent background information exploring the stages before engaging in the production of Diminish. I'll explain where to find full reports at the end of the video. Saria wanted to launch Diminish on Halloween, but the material wasn't quite ready yet, which delayed publishing. Just a note for all of you out there who have worried about missing certain publishing goals. It happens to the best of us. On launch day, Saria writes, I created a Reddit account playing Diminish so I could share it on the r/creepygaming board. I decided that venue for the time being to be my only main method of promoting the work. Aside from a Discord alias account made to silently admire the Discord fan server, I have not created any alt accounts in relation to this work at all. The only Diminish accounts are the official ones on YouTube, Twitter, and Reddit. So aside from the early Reddit posts, I left the promotion and spread of Diminish entirely to the winds of fate, with other very occasional exceptions. More on that later. Every single Diminish sentiment you see posted from a non-Diminish account, except Seria accounts, good or bad, is from an actual separate party. November 8, 2020. Diminish's first episode gained modest but surprising viewership from the subreddit. I checked in on the post every half-hour-ish at work. Couldn't help myself at all. I felt like I was dancing in the corner of the stage as my favorite act was performing, and any eyes I saw in my direction afforded me a unique validation. 90 plus upvotes was a stunning reception to me. The visibility had already far exceeded my expectations. November 23, 2020. Diminish 2 through 4 had been released. I'd continued my habit of sharing them immediately via playing Diminish on r/creepygaming, then on the Diminish game Twitter. My first subscribers were rolling in, and occasional comments and conversations were popping up. They were doing it. They were addressing Diminish. Response seemed mostly positive, though my pathological worry about silent hatred seeped into my mind as usual. Mostly though, I was deeply enjoying the novelty of making the project and the thrill of it actually being public. Around December 2nd through the 5th, 2020, a thread about Diminish had started on another small subreddit, r/thegameIfound. A user commented on the thread expressing the desire to make a Discord server for discussion and fandom. Soon after, sure enough, they posted an invite link. Thank you, Magic Ace. I immediately created an alias account and joined. This was one of the first truly surreal and sublime streaks of blinding sunlight. A total stranger had just created a fan server. There was no telling if a single other person would ever join, but a key part of my dream suddenly felt very corporeal. I then, after receiving the okay from Magic Ace, posted the open invite in Diminished video descriptions. I had no intention of being modest about how badly I want to see a fandom form around the fruits of my imagination and labor. Under my alias account, I have endeavored to very rarely discuss Diminish itself, and leave such things entirely to the untarnished genesis of free thought and others. So we see here that despite excellent initial reception on the subreddit chosen, it took just about a month for a viewer to generate a Discord for those wishing to discuss the project. While this may be a rapid rate for some projects, it may take longer for others, but do remember that it still took a month and at least 4 videos for Seria to see an audience congregation spot emerge. Fast forward to January 16th, 2021. Diminish 15 and 16 had premiered. At this point, I decided to stop posting them to r/creepygaming. It simply felt as though that time had passed. A self-sustaining Diminish community had materialized, and I didn't know if the moderators in r/creepygaming were ever thrilled with content like Diminish being shared there. January 18, 2021. David Stockdale, creator of the YouTube channel Nightmare Masterclass, watched the first several episodes of Diminish on a livestream. All of the miracles I'd been fantasizing about since 2016, and well before, were materializing. I'd been amplified by a prominent platform that I'd already gained emotional attachment with. I was able to see his own live reactions and takeaways. Diminish was experiencing immediate exponential growth. January 23, 2021. Diminish 17 premiered to more than 200 live viewers. I watched the entire thing with them, living and dying with every single message in the chat. Afterward, Tony, the creator of Petscop, promoted Diminish on his Twitter. Upon the release of the season climax of Diminish, the series' main inspiration let us know that he saw it and liked it. Truly, this is a big deal. Not only to have an endorsement from an inspiration and an established creator, but to have it from the creator of Petscop. And this occurred about 2.5 months after launch. While Diminish wasn't a giant at this point, it had already managed to grow a community that could stand on its own without continuous posting to subreddits, had grown enough to bring about 200 live viewers for a YouTube premiere, and had reached the eyes of a prominent figure in the community and an inspiration. What I'll say for this outcome is that, quite obviously, Seria's dedication to making Diminish the best it could be really pulled the majority of the weight. It takes an astonishing effort to do what was done for Diminish, and that effort made it possible to gather as many eyes and dedicated followers as it did once it was promoted in the right place. Again, advertising only works if the product is good. And that's the second thing I want to point out. Seria chose exactly the right subreddit to hit after creating quality work, and presented Diminish without making much of a fuss, just leaving the videos and posts that let people know this game was made for him as the character will. The appearance of the game, combined with that simple push, was enough to entice, not just once, but multiple times. Other reports I've read have used a similar approach, posting in character to subreddits that are appropriate for that character to use or post to according to the story's subject matter. This is a method I'm actually going to endorse fully. It's the very act of playing the character in an Unfiction project with faith, utilizing the internet and presenting as the character in a way that would be realistic for them. This pseudo-reality crossing point of common internet users coming across someone they don't realize is a character opening a door to a story is so much of what we're about, and it provides that magic show moment for newcomers who haven't heard of what we do. One report I received concerned a project focus on a cryptid hunter who promoted himself in character on subreddits like r/cryptozoology and r/myths. These are the approaches you want to take. Use the mindset and personality of the character accessing the internet and create activity in places where they will go. Play the role. Here, just look at what Saria says on the topic. When it comes to promoting your series, I think it's going to be something you really have to feel out. What type of project are you making? ARG? Pets Cop like this game I found story? A more traditional story? What platforms are it hosted on? What type of media is it? What is the feel and intent of your work? Ask yourself questions from every angle and come up with honest answers. The work itself should inform you whether or not certain methods of promotion will be intuitive for it. As we go further into the document for Diminish, we have a quick list of milestones, which is incredibly helpful. April 29, 2021, the Diminish YouTube channel crossed the 10,000 subscriber mark. It had taken 2.5 months to gain 100 subscribers. After Nightmare Masterclass, Tony, and other promoters, it had taken another 3 months to reach 2,200 subs, a number I never realistically dared to imagine I would see. It then took 15 days to gain almost 8,000 more subscribers thanks to the Nightmind video. Like the other cases, Diminish is an exemplary success, but don't overlook the fact that it still took 2.5 months to hit that 100 subscriber mark. As I mentioned earlier, your first 3 months are for building. You might make great successes in that time, but do not expect to blow up in less than 3 months. Simply do your best, keep the pace, and have faith. Finally, though there is so much excellent writing in this report, and I do encourage full reading for any creator hopeful or new project maker, I'm going to highlight one more passage. I released another video on the Saria Song channel, serving a similar purpose to the Diminish 14 address. This one approached all the people negatively affected by finding out Diminish is not a real story. The video was called Is Unfiction Fake? Diminish, a Lament, an Example. A point I cover in that video I will also share with you here. It may serve as a bit of creative advice. If you are making art to its fullest potential, it is going to be real as fuck. By that, I don't mean it will be nonfiction. I mean it's going to be so alive with you and your experiences, there is no other correct way to look at it than to call it real. Do not hesitate to be honest in your work. Do not hesitate to bleed. It will hurt so much more when people hate it. It will mean so much more when they don't. What Saria says about making art to its fullest potential, it's the truth. If you're going to do it, it's going to be real as fuck. And don't you flinch away or back down from committing to the reality of the story you're telling and what it entails. You are an artist, and you are here to present art. You may bleed, you may cry, you may take out the knives and scream and terrify and disgust people as much as you enthrall, mystify, and inspire them. You might make people uncomfortable or upset simply through the act of telling the truth of a character or event. But what the situation calls for, whatever the truth of the characters and narrative is, that narrative truth must be presented. You may end up telling stories of horrific and traumatic events, heinous villains, horrible monsters, and unfathomable loss. Don't overdo it, but don't censor or sanitize it. Do what it calls for. Do it according to the truth of the story. Don't push it farther than it needs to be, don't let it fall short of where it needs to go, and don't apologize. It will hurt so much more when people hate it. It will mean so much more when they don't. That is correct, and I'm grateful Saria said it. You are an artist, and nothing great you make will be absent of heart and your commitment to the tale. To go that far requires a bit of courage and some iron in your spirit. We still live in a world where some people think writers are actually trying to harm people when they describe the actions or words of villains as part of a narrative, and we've come to sanitize a lot of things that creators push themselves to bring forward to their best ability. In certain cases, we have scared people into being quieter than the art compels. Someone, somewhere, is going to have something nasty to say about your art and try to use it as an accusatory finger against you, or as an attempt to mock you. that is inescapable. These people do not understand artists, they do not understand art, and they especially do not understand you. Least of all do they understand the commitment and bravery it takes to go the distance and be passionate on a world stage. Don't blink. Tell the tale, carry on, and remember, do no harm, but take no shit. Now, final notes. This has been a long endeavor, I know, but I'd like to share these last few findings. One of the most positive discoveries found throughout the reports is that many of the creators whose projects could be seen as objective failures expressed that despite performance and despite error, they're happy with what they made, and are happy with the fact they made anything at all. One creator writes, "I think overall, I am pretty satisfied with the way this project turned out. It's a story that I have been carefully crafting in my head for so long now, and the fact that I could make it interactive and that people could actually be interested in it was something special to me. I think in total, there were about 50 to 80 people following the project, which was good enough for me, especially for my first time doing something like this on my own and at such a young age. At the time, the creator was 19. Certainly young, but an excellent time for a premiere project." Another creator who used TikTok to some mixed results wrote the following. "In the end, my project was cheap and poorly planned. It didn't become very popular and around 600 people at least saw it, but I wouldn't consider it to have been a failure, because I made something I can look back on and be proud of in all its low-budget glory. And I think that's important for people who are just getting into the process of creating an unfiction story. You won't find success immediately. You might not even find success over the whole course of that story. But what matters is that you keep trying and at least make something you can be proud of. Even if it goes wrong, even if no one participates, as long as you make something you're happy with and had fun with, it'll be worth it." This next quote comes from one of the projects that had numbers so low I wasn't able to properly graph it. "To be honest, I still had a lot of fun looking back, and I'm still of the opinion that I had some interesting ideas with the format of emails and messages, but I was clearly too inexperienced a writer and too new to the field of unfiction to really make it worth someone's time to scroll through. If I were to do it again, I would 100% spend a lot more time pre-planning a lot more content, writing a more formal story, and then distilling it into the format instead of distilling on the fly. To someone else in my position, I would definitely urge them to push through a lack of followers, since that is possibly the biggest regret I have from that project's end." Another project that didn't gain traction and had its difficulties had this to say. "I was extremely excited to get things done while working on this project. It was the most fun and most productive I've ever been. I do consider what I've done to be successful in some aspects, while parts of it being unsuccessful as well. I unpacked so much nostalgia writing all of this down. The creation of this project is so deeply personal to me, and I'm so proud of it despite its flaws. Creating it taught me so much about what it's like to be in an influencer's shoes, and so much more." When the same creator was asked, "Are you happy and what moments made you satisfied?" they had this to say. "Absolutely. I am extremely proud of the stuff I was able to create along the way. The entire project turned out to be better than I ever expected, despite not receiving the target audience I was expecting. Every time I made a new addition to the webpage, every time I released a YouTube upload for that week, every time I created an Instagram story to post in the feed for my followers, those were all moments I felt incredibly satisfied with my work ethic, my abilities, and overall being able to physically see what I can make. It honestly felt like a dream, creating the whole thing in under so little time. I almost can't believe I did it." This next piece comes from a creator who made at least 3 projects, and it comes from a truly excellent report that I'll be publishing to the index and encourage reading. When it's up, you'll find it under the title, I Am Dustin. "There were times throughout the process when I'd find myself focusing more on the lack of interaction, high dislike counts on some videos, the unflattering ratio of views to subscribers, the very low average watch time, which was much lower than the average length of videos. At times I felt all my efforts were for naught. The narrative I was constructing was hollow, that no one cared or would ever care to get acquainted with the story. I doubted my worth in storytelling and questioned my ability to get an audience to care. Moments of doubt consumed me, where I felt embarrassed with myself for posting what I had been posting, that the characters I've constructed are too far beyond anything anyone could relate to, and that I was delusional to think at times that my effort had any merit at all, that everything was much lower quality than I allowed myself to see. These feelings at times weighed on me heavily. I do think that given what I've learned, I'd be able to do better, that what I've produced, especially the early bits, could be better. I also had a lot of trouble finding my audience, and ultimately, never did. Regardless, however, I kept going. Regardless of my work's perceived worth, regardless of my perception of how others might be perceiving my work's worth, I developed my own connection to the narrative as well as with the characters. I literally cared for them. The story just didn't feel complete, and I felt it would be a great disservice to the characters I've constructed, as well as to myself, to just give up. I had invested feelings into this world, and regardless of where my headspace could be at times, I just couldn't bring myself to end things unless this ending felt organic. The numbers were secondary. I think if creators invest too much emotion into the numbers, if their project doesn't set off over time, the probability of throwing in the towel becomes heightened. If it does set off, the numbers will continue to motivate them, but their content may lack soul. If one has invested feelings into the world they've constructed and the characters who inhabit it, the probability that they will continue venturing forth is heightened, increasing the chance of it eventually taking off. Not to say that it will take off. It's possible it never will. One has to accept this potential and probable eventuality. Each creative endeavor is a mere drop within the ocean that is the World Wide Web. When questioning whether my work has been a flat-out failure or not, I would say I've both failed and succeeded. However, the bulk of me is rather proud of myself. To have stepped outside comfort, diving into all this new technology, social media, acting, planning and editing video, etc., I learned a lot more about myself in the process. It was a lot of work, much more than I imagined going into it, but I found that once I started, I'd be able to sit there focused for 8, 10, 12 hours in a single sitting. This is very unusual for me. I generally get bored easily and act in very typical attention deficit ways. I grew to enjoy everything I was exploring, as well as getting to know these characters my brain conceived. And as weird as it may sound, the characters I've constructed have each taught me something as well. I don't think this is something easily understandable unless one experiences it, so I won't attempt an explanation, but these characters have in some small way become a part of me. Perhaps this is how I've been able to continue forward for literal years, constructing all the content I have. The spark within me, this urge to tell a story, is much more powerful than the dopamine release followers and likes might warrant. In the end, was all the effort worth it? Absolutely. One of the easiest traps to fall into is the one I brought up earlier, an obsession with numbers. Our world is one in which everything is assigned a number value, and we've conditioned ourselves to believe in numbers as the direct value of whatever they're assigned to. While numbers have their merits, their place in society has become vastly overgrown, especially in the realm of the arts, and it's brought people into a way of thinking that has made them forget the truth that these creators discovered. The act of creation itself is its own fulfillment. To go forward and do what we've personally never done or thought we could do, to have any semblance of proof that we can do it, and to express ourselves and grow in this fashion, that is the path of an artist. To create is to be a creator, and the satisfaction that comes from it can't be touched by any number, regardless of whether or not it's good. And if you've made a connection to another person through your work, or even several, that is a success, no matter how many people it is. Now, for a probably anticipated section, advice from creators, big and small. Speaking of how good things take time, you might not see a substantial amount of viewers participating even after the first 50 videos you upload. This might sound vague, but your video ideas have to both captivate or grab the attention of potential viewers, while at the same time sticking to your intended storyline. The attention grabbing is usually done through making the title and the thumbnail of the video. You can try to include conversations that are currently popular or trending in the video itself, but most of all, I would recommend making the videos as personable and amiable as possible. Be honest with yourself. You are your own worst critic. You need to have a level of realism, which will help determine how far you can make it in terms of your own standards of personal success and creative achievement. Treat working on your project like a secret society if you can. The only people that should know what you're doing and working on are people you are working with. The less, the better in terms of outsiders knowing. Advice I have to new creators is, plan in advance. Don't just make it up as you go along or start a story without knowing where it's going. Throughout this story, I know I've demonstrated examples of just coming up with ideas and doing them, but before even starting the series, I had every episode of the analog horror aspect planned, as well as the general story for the modern day plot and ending of the series. Before starting a new channel or website, I planned it for a month and created it for a month before it ever went public. So take notes, make detailed plans, write scripts, and don't rush. Also, always be unique. There's hundreds of Twitter ARGs based on The Sun Vanished. There's dozens of Slenderman ARGs. There's a million shaky cam videos with base 64 and binary code claiming to be ARGs. Don't do that. Just be unique. Do research into why successful ARGs are successful. Learn those lessons, but don't just copy them. Participate in as many ARGs as possible. And if you don't have a real idea for an ARG and for the story, don't make an ARG. I'm often on the r/ARG subreddit, and it is so disheartening to see page after page of unoriginal ideas and posts of people saying, I want to make an ARG but I don't have a story idea and I don't know how to make puzzles. What should I do? Come up with a real idea and then make your series. Don't just make something for the sake of making something. And in terms of making things and thinking outside the box, here are some words from Alex Bale, creator of Pizza Time Pizza, SpongeBob Conspiracies, and so much more. I don't know of any other ARGs out there that are completely breaking immersion and cutting to scenes that aren't through the lens of any objective camera. I'm a filmmaker, and I don't want to limit myself with making the story strictly found footage. I think it's a damn shame people don't branch out from found footage more. In found footage, you rarely get to see what the character is thinking when they're not being watched. So when you play with immersion, you can learn more of the truth about characters who would be deceptive towards a camera. I think people don't do this because they think in order to create an alternate reality, it has to be 100% believable and possible for it to be actually happening in real life. No one really believes Marble Hornets was real, but the commitment to their internal logic is what made it believable and immersive. You can still have something immersive or through the lens of a camera while also cutting to real life, or even breaking character and taking credit for the project. As long as you follow your own internal logic, the project can be immersive. SpongeBob Conspiracies is a mix between videos made by characters and real-life omniscient perspectives. I do some interesting tricks to maintain the internal logic of these two perspectives. If you go to my channel, you'll see that my Mrs. Puff theory is 30 minutes 16 seconds long. That's 28 minutes of a theory video created by a character, and then a 2-minute live action scene where we learn about that character outside of any in-universe camera. Conspiracy Carl is another character in this project. He has his own website where he makes videos about Alex. We see Alex's channel from his perspective, but the Mrs. Puff theory is only 28 minutes 40 seconds long. That's because characters in this world are unable to see anything that breaks the immersion. It's a small detail, but it makes all the difference in making your world feel believable. It's important to easily explain to the audience whether they're seeing something through a camera or an omniscient narrative perspective. I've consistently done this in SpongeBob Conspiracies and Pizza Time Pizza by changing the aspect ratios. You can pretty easily visually distinguish which shot is from a camera and which is from the audience's omniscient perspective. Creating different lighting and color palettes for these two perspectives can also go a long way. When first establishing these different aspect ratios, I like to include some context clues for help. Cutting to Alex while he's holding his camera, mic, or looking at the video he made on a monitor helps visually tell the audience we're no longer looking through a camera. I think the reason why people were able to immediately get into Pizza Time Pizza was because the initial launch had a lot of stuff for people to dig into immediately. As soon as I posted the video, people also had a whole website full of secrets to dissect. Your first impression is important, and if it's just one small video and nothing for people to dig into, it probably won't make much of an impact. The initial Pizza Time Pizza launch also immediately gave people something to do. Sign up for the email list and get sent a cryptic, spread the word and await further commands video. That was a way to tell people right off the bat that they would be rewarded with fun secret videos if they interacted, and part of the way they participate is by sharing the ARG with others. ARGs are inherently interactive, and I feel like not enough people use that as an excuse to get their participants to do the marketing for them. Alex raises excellent points about following your creativity beyond the standards we've seen in the field. By the nature of his presentations, he's still giving the audience an alternate reality, and he's not winking at the audience or breaking character as he does so. The line between the real and the fictional is blurred, and internet technology is used to run the narrative, which is really the only basis of how we operate. Not everything necessarily needs to be point-and-shoot camera footage taken by a character. It just needs to work for the story that you're telling. The end segments of Alex's SpongeBob theories are crafted in such a way that, yes, we think Alex's character should have a reaction to all this odd additional footage capturing him receiving theory ideas. But as he wrote, his character is unable to perceive the reality break that we're exposed to. We are, quite literally, in an alternate reality to his, watching things unfold with a perspective his character cannot fathom or react to. And guess what? It all still follows the magician's code of Unfiction and works for the storytelling. Now, for technical details, such as what people used and what you can use, here are a few mentioned in reports. Kay from Hi I'm Mary Mary used a Canon Rebel T4i as her camera. had a small USB microphone for any additional audio needs, and primarily worked in the Adobe suite of programs for editing, particularly Premiere Pro and After Effects. Michael Anderson of ARGNet, for one of his projects, The Wanamaker Ghost, used a Canon T3i and the stock lens to shoot footage. Dustin of I Am Dustin also mentioned using a Canon camera, the G7X Mark II. And of course, there are plenty of projects who simply utilize their phone cameras or other types of DSLR. Software was a wide range. Shotcut, PowerDirector 16, Bandicam, Audacity, VSDC, Avidemux, DaVinci Resolve, Blender, iMovie, HitFilm Express, Canva. There are really a lot of programs out there for the purpose of video editing, audio editing, and making graphics, and tons of them are free. There will be a good few lists that you can look at provided by creators and Trailhead reports I'll have published on the index. Which leads me to the final point. You can read many of the reports I've received through the Nightmind Index. I've set up a research page, and through there, you'll be able to access the reports. I really encourage reading these yourself. There is so much to learn, and the creator stories themselves are fascinating and inspiring. And with that, I'm going to call this current venture done and call it a night. Thanks to all of you for viewing. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the Trailhead research effort, and thanks to all my supporters on Patreon, who make doing things like this possible, and have been very encouraging as I've gone on this endeavor. If you'd like to support Nightmind and the Nightmind Index for new and emerging Unfiction projects, you can do so for as little as $2 a month. Enjoy the names at the end of this video. Thanks for joining me in the dark again this evening. Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and I wish all of you the best of luck on your creative journeys, whether in the realm of Unfiction or otherwise. Do your best. Believe in your work, be true to your story, and sleep tight.